This is going to be an episode where all I want to do is just be able to talk in like a Brooklyn, New York, Italian accent, but will be completely unable to because I'll probably inadvertently set the mob on myself for being an offensive stereotype. As long as I could remember, I wanted to be able to talk like Ray Liotta in GoodFellas. I absolutely love GoodFellas. It's certainly in my top 3 films of all time, although there's definitely one or two bits that I just can't quite wrap my head around quite yet. I feel like it almost certainly does romanticize certain parts of, you know, that mob lifestyle in the 90s and the kind of brotherhood that comes with that.
Hey, here he is.
Oh, you broke your cherry.
But at the same time, it really doesn't shy away from, you know, what terrible, terrible people these guys were and the awful things that they did.
Give us a couple of fucking steps here, Spider. You fucking bullshitter, you. Tell the truth, you're looking for sympathy. Is that it, sweetie?
You really don't feel sorry for them when they get their eventual comeuppance. I mean, especially Tommy DeVito. Man, screw that guy. And I think that the pinnacle of the romanticization that goes on around these, the lives of these mobsters is in the very famous prison scene where you have Paulie's gang are just living up in their own special apartment, you know, separated from the rest of the prisoners there. Apparently, this scene is actually fairly reflective of what the wise guys went through when they went to prison.
How do you like yours?
Rare. Medium rare.
Medium rare. An aristocrat.
Although Scorsese has said that the music playing in the background, Beyond the Sea, and the delivery of the crate of lobsters was probably the only real exaggeration.
You know, when you think of prison, you get pictures in your mind of all those old movies with rows and rows of guys behind bars. But it wasn't like that for Wise Guys.
And during this scene, Henry Hill produces from his goods bag of his daily deliveries of prosciutto, mozzarella, several other kinds of meats and cheeses. He also pulls out a bottle of Scotch.
Scotch.
And a bottle of red wine.
Some red wine.
Okay. Now we could eat.
And it finally dawned upon me what cocktail that the wise guys would drink if in fact they drank craft cocktails. And the answer to that is the New York Sour. The New York Sour is thought to have first been made in Chicago sometime in the 1880s, although the exact origin, the place and time of the drink has remained somewhat nebulous to a lot of researchers. This drink has had a whole hell of a lot of names, and I'm going to read some of them out here. Spoilers, there are notes sometimes. The Continental Sour, the Southern Whiskey Sour, the Brunswick Sour, and the Claret Snap, before eventually the name New York Sour was landed upon. And the eventual settlement on the name New York Sour was probably after a bartender in Manhattan started serving them up and making them more popular. However, all of that being said, I can't really imagine that the wise guys or the GoodFellas would actually sit down or have the patience for a craft cocktail. Especially Tommy DeVito, he'd probably shoot me before I had the chance to get it to him. Now, the New York Sour that I'm going to make for the GoodFellas is a slight twist, but not by much. Just to match thematically with the prison scene, New York Sours are usually made with a base of bourbon or rye, but in the scene, Henry Hill produces from his bag a bottle of Jane B. Rare Blend Scotch whiskey. I wasn't able to get my hands on any Jane B. Rare Blend Scotch whiskey, but what I did have was this bottle of Grant's Blended Scotch whiskey. This is a really, just a really smooth, easy kind of going Scotch whiskey. So I'm going to use this instead, and I think that the smoother the blend, the better for the New York Sour. I would definitely steer clear of something like a really smoky Scotch for this. Hey, I'm gonna go make the cocktail.
I'm gonna go get the papers,
And, the New York Sour obviously has a base of just a standard whiskey sour, which is shaken, so we are going to need our cocktail shaker. And the first thing we are going to add to that is 1 ounce of lemon juice. We are also going to need some simple syrup. The simple syrup I've got here is quite strong. I think this might even be stronger than a 2-to-1 ratio. So I'm just going to use maybe about half an ounce of simple syrup in my New York Sour. And then comes the matter of whiskey. As said before, you can usually expect to use a bourbon or a rye as a base. I'm going to use this rather smooth blended Scotch whiskey, of which I'm going to need 2 ounces. So all I need to do now is add ice to my tin and shake. Some people might be wondering why I haven't added an egg white to the whiskey sour part of this. And that's because of the next part, the little float of red wine that I'm going to add across the top. The addition of whiskey sour is going to lower the overall density of the drink, and making a float will therefore be absolutely impossible. It will just want to precipitate down to the bottom and mix in. And because I want that layering, that's why I'm not adding the egg white. So I'm going to take one of these quite nice looking whiskey glasses, and I'm just going to add a big rock and strain my whiskey sour into the glass. Now here comes the rather delicate part, when I'm going to add a float of a dry red wine. I'm just using this Oxford Landing Merlot. And the way that I'm going to add a float is just off the back of a bar spoon. Ever so gently, I just want to add this, let it flow over the back. And there you have it, a New York Sour fit for one of the wise guys. That's a really good layering. I'm actually really quite pleased with that. Okay, let's try this. That is quite fantastic, man. And this is a combination that you really wouldn't think would go well together. Whiskey sour and red wine. That makes almost no sense, but it's just one of those bizarre cocktail magic mixology sorcery kind of things that they just go together so well, and it is so crisp and refreshing. And let me tell you, it is hot in the garage where I'm filming this at the moment. So this is so cool and so refreshing and just so needed. It's just so crisp and refreshing from the sweet lemonade kind of aspect of a whiskey sour. And that's actually really helped by the Grant's blended, really smooth Scotch whiskey that I'm using. It just adds to the level of bracing refreshingness as an adjective to the whiskey sour, and that float of red wine brings out all of the richer flavors, but also gives it a body that frankly I was not expecting at all. No, that is an absolutely fantastic drink. And presentationally, it's a really impressive cocktail. It's so simple and so easy to make, yet I feel like you'd be, quite hard done by not finding anyone who would be, impressed with you making them this cocktail. Again, something which they wouldn't expect to work, but does work and looks fantastic at the same time. As always, I've been Joe, and this is In The Drink. Thank you so much for tuning in to watch my show. I really appreciate it. Subscribe if you would like to see more of this. And if you think maybe there's something I could do better or something you like, then let me know in the comments. It's always great to hear either way. And I really hope I see you next time. Cheers.